ESG, the acronym, they stand for three entirely different sets of practices. The E is focused on environment. The kind of impact any organization brings on the environment by virtue of its function, by virtue of its business processes, both downstream and upstream. The S part is the more people-focused area. That is, to the extent you follow the principles of diversity, equity, inclusion.
The social impact.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the social part of it. Largely, this is the internal side of the social part of it. But of course, it also entails to the extent you deal with the local communities. How your products themselves also have an impact on the people. G part, which is governance, has got increased focus after it became part of ESG. That is because ESG today, the way it is viewed, is more like a composite score of a company. That is, you can say an ESG score is a proxy for the quality of a company.
ESG scoring system.
Yeah. So the way people look at ESG, if you have a higher rating, you mentioned about S&P, and then there are so many other rating agencies. So the moment you look at a given score, it is kind of a proxy of what you are as a company.
How good you are.
So that's how the whole evolution of the ESG has been from this side of it. So from the point of view of any external stakeholder, the fact that you are very high on the ESG ratio or ESG practice, it shows that you as a company are at the forefront of a quality company.
How does this rating works typically?
Well, that's a very interesting question. As a matter of fact, people still are trying to get their head around it.
Figuring it out. I thought so.
There are plenty of
parameters.
So many rating agencies. And like you mentioned, the how part is fairly interesting because there are different ways of going about it. So it's a vast subject in itself. But the most important thing about it is that who is doing it, the kind of reputation that they have for themselves. So I think that matters to a considerable extent. The ratings still do one really good job, which is that they make sure that the companies are looking up to those ratings. So if you want a good rating, means you have to have
ESG compliant.
Really do well on across ESG, because usually the way these scores are that you have a score for ESG, you have a score for S and G, and then you have a composite score also. So when you are looking at a given company as a company good on the E side, but not so good on the G side, that means you need to act on that part as well. So
is this specific to certain industries? How do you put the ESG and composite together?
Actually, that's a very interesting question. Not many people actually look at from that perspective. So before I talk about this, I have to also talk about something called sustainability.
Okay.
So a few years back, or until very recently, before ESG became such a prominent word which signaled the quality of company, sustainability was a very important measurement of what the company is all about. The sustainability here was actually composed of what was called triple bottom line. So it's people, planet, profits. That is, you take care of the people, you take care of the planet, which is the environment part, and of course the revenues. So what actually has happened at that point in time, you were primarily looking at how sustainable was the company across these three parameters. Yes. Now, ESG today has largely surpassed the term sustainability, to denote more or less the same thing. But then, your question is really very interesting. The sustainability part was very different for different industries at that point in time, because some of the companies were more required to be sustainable than others, because if you may have a larger carbon footprint or depending on the kind of process and practice, the kind of materials that you're using, the inputs that go in, and so on and so forth. ESG, that's a very major difference, because ESG is important for all the organizations.
Be it services, be it manufacturing.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter which industry you belong to.
Absolutely. Because the sustainability part, although it did include the other parameters as well, the social parameters, the governance parameters, but ESG has brought it right up front. That is, there is E, there is S, there is G, and you have to be good in all three. And then that certainly denotes that the company has certain kind of practices within them.